I am here with JD Gershbein, who's a speaker, consultant, facilitator, broadcaster, producer, writer, and self-styled professional edutainer. You're blazing the trail as one of the most original personalities in new media. Since transitioning away from traditional marketing practice in 2006, he's established himself as a mentor and a positive role model for professionals in all walks of business who strive for excellence in the digital age. Well, that sounds really impressive. Now I got to find out what that really means.
My gosh, who wrote that stuff?
Who wrote it? Well, we kind of know each other pretty well by now because we've done a few different things together here. And I'm really excited to chat today.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, I'm with Diane Hamilton, PhD.
Isn't that exciting?
This is the way to spend time.
It is. You know, you got to spread that word. You got to spread
You forgot to mention professional smiler. I smile.
You are.
A natural smile these days. You have to.
You do a lot of things. I found out you do cartooning a minute ago. I had no idea.
That's true.
You have quite an interesting background of things that you've done. I mean, I've watched your talks and I've seen a lot of your videos you've created. You're really entertaining in these videos, by the way. I have had people on my show. You're welcome. I had Trip Crosby on my show, and he had a great video. I don't know if you've seen a conference call in real life, but it's really similar in satire, making fun of, you know, what things that we take for granted or whatever. And you have that kind of sense of humor to me that really, like, you can just see the fun in the situations that we deal with in work situations.
You have to make it fun at this stage of the game. You just do. If we can't laugh as we learn, I mean. Yeah.
Well, you made an interesting video and that I would like to talk about because you had the voiceover artist. Remind me of his name?
Ryan Golcher.
Yes.
A Chicago area guy, grew up in Northbrook, not too far from where I grew up, and just serendipitously saw him rifling through his celebrity impersonations on a local news show here in Chicago, WGN Morning News. And I mean, it stopped me in my tracks. Diane.
He's great.
I could not believe how good this kid was. And you have to call him a kid. He was a teenager when I saw him. That was a little while ago. As we tape this, he is a junior at University of Southern California. And he's made it into Second City. He's doing commercials with Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, he's no longer a best kept secret, but he did this work with me. I did an interview with him on Huffington Post and then cast him in this little training video that I did back in 2016. And I just think the world of the young man. He's going to go places.
Well, tell him what he did in the video, because I thought, you know, and I'd love for you to explain your interview of him, how you handled that, because I think the two videos are really funny.
Sure. I brought him in to actually talk about the way that the millennials are really changing their perspective these days. Mm-hmm. As a father of two millennials, I've kind of seen the way that the cohorts have responded to what's going on the business landscape. And nowadays, as a parent, parents are directing their kids to be more free thinking, more entrepreneurial. Yes, they still have to go to school. They've got to get the degree, study hard, get the good jobs, learn about business. But Ryan impressed me as a guy who's doing everything the right way. He's going to school, getting an education, but he wants to crack the highly cutthroat competitive world of entertainment. Mm-hmm. He's got talent and he's got moxie and drive. So the piece was really designed to showcase that millennial spirit and how millennials are really kind of doing things differently. They are going to rule the world.
Yeah. Well, we need to say yeah, they are. And we have to say what his talent is, though.
He's a celebrity voiceover impressionist and artist. Boy, he's probably loving all this publicity I'm getting.
I know. I want to get him on the show because I loved what you did, because you interviewed him about millennials, but he answered in different celebrity voices, which Correct. I thought was really wonderful. And some of the ones he does, some of the voices, can you remember?
Well, he does a couple that not many people do. He does Michael Douglas.
Yeah, he was great.
What impersonator do you know who does Michael Douglas? And it's spot on.
It
is
is.
Mark Wahlberg. Spot on.
Yeah.
All his impersonations are on target.
Uh-huh.
But the one, obviously, that I chose for inclusion in my humorous training video was the Morgan Freeman. I'm a huge fan of the film The Shawshank Redemption, and it
Very
gave me an
cool.
opportunity to write this in as kind of a, I mean, who the heck knows how I strung these elements together? I mean, into a business training film for LinkedIn for crying. But I would encourage people to find me on LinkedIn. You can find it on YouTube. It's called The Training Session.
It's funny.
And
It's great.
it gives me a chance to really riff on what has become a classic film. A lot of people know the narration by Morgan Freeman is what really truly drives that picture. And it gave me an opportunity to take out some of the great lines of narration from the film and intersperse them with what people were seeing in a conference room, going around the table with people who are just muddled and befuddled about LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, you are the LinkedIn guru. You know it inside and out. Now, what drew you to LinkedIn to begin with?
You know, I'm constantly asked about that, Diane, and I'll preface by
Okay. Well,
saying,
then I want to.
yeah, it's all out there. Go find
That's
it.
all. No, I want to hear.
You know, I never, when I first started doing the work in social media, and I'm a late stage early adopter, so I came to LinkedIn in 2006, and I never, and I mean never, thought my story would be of interest to anyone, because at the time, social media was new, the economy was in distress, the recession was about ready to hit, and the last thing business people wanted to learn was a social networking site that would zap their time and energy.
Right.
So the sell wasn't so much about my products or services. It was about really selling the notion of LinkedIn and telling folks in business, this is where it's going. I'm seeing this. I haven't been visionary with anything in my life. I certainly can't predict the NFL.
Yeah.
But I saw something in this that I thought was going to be just game changing and eye popping, and just the way that I'm hardwired. I took to it right away and kind of developed my own posture and mindset around this, and just started to talk about it wherever I went, and soon branded as a kind of a go-to resource in that area.
You know, I can remember first when I got on LinkedIn, I didn't do that much. I thought of it as kind of a resume at the beginning. You didn't really, you just put your resume up there. You didn't really think of it as interactive. And I got much more involved into Facebook before I was doing what I'm doing now, I'm saying. And once you get into the business setting where people are trying to communicate, I saw such a different amount of energy on LinkedIn. Just, it wasn't like that at the beginning, was it? Didn't it change like pretty dramatically?
You're absolutely right, Diane. It did. In people's minds, it was a job seeker site.
Yeah.
And I would frequently hear, JD, I'm not interested in doing LinkedIn. I don't need a job, or I'm in business. And it wasn't really thought of as the business development site that it is. Nobody was what you would call selling products and services back then. It was, what is this? Okay, we build a network. We invite people to connect. We accept their invitations to connect. There are now names and pictures on our computer screen. Okay, I'll tinker with the profile. I'll do this. I'll do that. So we were kind of going through motions, doing what LinkedIn was asking us to do, what they expected us to do as users. And then I would say right around 2010, the switch got flipped, and LinkedIn, what we now know it to be as a vibrant, pulsating, throbbing site where professionals can come together and have conversations around business and leverage their own personal brands. We weren't talking about personal branding back then.
Right.
It has been on a path of just relentless innovation since then. And now it is that site. It is that site that offers possibilities. It can truly change people's professional lives. And I've been at the forefront of it. I feel that it's done at the level of the profile. So my core service was offering to write and build out these profiles for people so that they would dress the part. They would look good on their page and influence the decisions that they were trying to get, whether it was to sell a product or service, whether it was to drive a niche, or whether it was to get a job.
There's so many different people who advise different things on LinkedIn, what to do, like write in first person. No, don't write in first person. I mean, a lot of people have bulleted points. Some have a million stars and buttons. And is there a right or wrong way to have your bio? I mean, is that just subjective?
You know, since day one, I've put my own spin and my own take on this. I'm a bit of a maverick when it comes to the way that I teach uh, and execute on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. And I've always favored the third person narrative. We're
Mm-hmm.
all searching for our narratives now.
Yeah.
And for many people, it's out of the first person. They want to talk about I, me, mine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The situation there is I was coming across so many people who had achieved so much in business. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, these were superstars.
Yeah.
These are fantastic people who have garnered numerous awards, wide scale acclaim. And when they started to write about those achievements in first person, they sounded arrogant
Yeah.
and bombastic. They
Yeah.
didn't sound real. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have this feeling that they were accessible and responsive. It was just about them.
Yeah.
You write in the third person, and if we're all talented in business, we all try to play to our strengths, we all
Mm-hmm.
have our best value and our
Mm-hmm.
best skills, but when they're expressed in a way that makes sense to the potential client or the potential hiring manager or the
Mm-hmm.
decision maker, we look real.
Hmm.
And that is what operates at the highest intellectual and emotional centers of the brain to kind of reconfigure our decision making machinery. If people look good on LinkedIn, and that's one of the challenges, is creating bias, kind of a halo effect about yourself. If you look good and you sound good on LinkedIn, well, then you are good, and
Right.
you're
Right.
able to deliver in the real world and come through on a brand promise.
Well, I like your owls, by the way. Your picture that you have on LinkedIn. It's attention getting. I Is there a certain amount of content that you think people should have? I mean, do you have a lot of, I mean, you make videos, so you obviously showcase your videos there. Do you think everybody should have some sort of video, or is that just because you're into video that you have
Short answer:
that? Yeah,
yes, yes.
they should have it.
Um,
Okay.
it is all coming down to content.
Mm-hmm.
We are all commodities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, it's not breaking news, Diane,
Mm-hmm.
but we are all commodities. And
Yeah.
there are people who are bigger, brighter, better. They think quicker, they execute swiftly. You have to keep competitive with content, whether it's written, whether it's visual, whether it's in the moment. We are now encouraged to be storytellers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to tell stories, and it's hard to tell stories
Yes.
effectively.
It is, and you're great at that. I was watching your talk that you gave, one of them, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but you can tell a story. You were talking about your childhood and different things, and I thought, you know, it just seemed like it came so effortlessly to you to tell the stories. I mean, is this something that comes naturally to you, or did you have to work on that?
A lot of rehearsal time,
Yeah.
a lot of time in front of. I do have a gym in my home with a walled mirror, and if you're going to go out there and speak in front of an audience, you have to rehearse. You have to work on stagecraft, and that means everything. It means posture, eye contact, the way you move around the stage, because when everything is working right, and not just in professional speaking, but in writing, in networking, and in just thinking the way you think through everything in business, it's got to flow. There's got to be a rhythmic feel to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not going to sound all that put together on the receiving end.
Yeah.
So I've worked very hard on my ability to use language. I've studied the communication arts. I do the very best I can. And when it comes to storytelling, I don't want people to feel pressure to tell stories. As you say, it's got to flow naturally. And people do, I believe, have a baseline naturality about telling their stories. It's now time to hone it. And it's time
Yeah.
to hone it in front of the camera. It's time to hone it in front of the microphone. There are more people who want to speak nowadays than ever before. There's more speakers than conferences available to feature
Yeah.
them. And
Uh-huh.
everybody is trying to crack the corporate environment now and do trainings and workshops and facilitations. Well, that's speaking, and
Mm-hmm.
that's in the moment branding.
Right.
So how you manifest in front of an audience
Mm-hmm.
means everything nowadays, and that too, spoken word
Mm-hmm.
content. We are at the cutting edge now, at the forefront of content creation that is going to separate the contenders from the pretenders.
Yeah. Well, I agree. It's really interesting to see who's making it and who's not. And you said something about your training. And I remember talking to you about some of your acting training you've taken. Uh,
Mhm.
That's got to be hard to go through that if you're, you know what I mean, to learn that. I mean, you just got to be loosen up a lot, I think, to take acting, don't you? I mean, you have to not take yourself super seriously and be able to lighten up.
Acting is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I have such appreciation for professional actors.
Hmm.
In the 1980s, before it was cool to say that you went to Second City, I studied comedy and performance and did a couple years at Second City and was part of a performing troupe. Looking back, I wasn't probably all that accomplished, but you know, those skills that I learned in that setting have been instrumental in my development as a speaker and a communicator because it gave me the ability to be present with a partner and communicate and be comfortable in my own skin. And they call it present in the moment,
Hmm.
Diane.
Yeah.
And you need that in all aspects of business, whether you're talking to an employer, a colleague, client, a prospect. We all need the ability to stand and deliver. And the skills used in professional acting are uh, parallel and dovetail beautifully with how we present and show up as a business person. And there are many people in acting who are teaching presentation skills in business.
Yes. And isn't that the improv thing I'm supposed to do?
Indeed, indeed, my educated comic student friend.
Yes. And I
Yes.
would find it kind of fun to go, but you know, you just, I don't know, it would be a little bit intimidating, I think, at first to be able to just do all those things that they make you kind of just break down all the barriers. But you know what I found was interesting just in watching you? First of all, I was trying to figure out what your focus. I mean, I know you're a LinkedIn expert and I know you give speeches about LinkedIn, but you do these videos, training, you do, what do you consider your focus? I mean, your top, if they had to hire you right now, what would be your number one thing that you would say that you'd want to be hired to do?
I've really migrated to that thought leadership space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with individuals and companies that want to develop, accelerate, and execute on their thought leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And what does thought leadership mean? What on
Yeah.
earth is that? That's another one of those contrived vocabulary terms from the social media revolution.
Right.
Well, thought leadership, to define it properly, it really is leadership at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized what was happening in my life as someone who is asked on a daily basis about LinkedIn, I was answering a call of leadership. And it wasn't like I was leading an organization or organizations or companies or internal business units,
Mm-hmm.
but I was developing the same skills that leaders need to be effective. And that was authentic, powerful communication, empathy, and adherence to core values of integrity and family and placing a premium on professional relationships. So my role, what I do for individuals and companies today is it's more than just helping them navigate a website.
Mm-hmm.
There's any number of sources you can go to online right now. The market is flooded with LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
experts who are self-declaring themselves as the smartest person in the room when it comes to LinkedIn.
Right.
I kind of bowed out from some of that. I've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
I can teach the website. The website is no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's the behaviors around the website,
Mm-hmm.
the
Right.
pieces that we bring that will truly make the difference between idle activity on the site and true strategy. So companies are retaining me to really work with their teams to develop those strategies, to dovetail their content marketing efforts, to showcase their cultures
Mm-hmm.
and elevate the profiles of the individuals within the company and thus elevate the company itself. I've become a student of how people elevate their game, how they promote artfully, how they promote scientifically. And that is in line with everything I've studied, everything I've been trained to do. Goes back to childhood when I started doing my own little plays in my room. How about that?
How about that? Well, so you prefer the consulting to the speaking then? Or do you do both?
Did I say that? Am I going to be
No, I'm
misquoted?
putting words into your mouth now.
I'm establishing myself and identifying these days as a social scientist and a new media personality. So I'm calling upon all of these skills I learned in radio and television when I was in high school and college. First day of my freshman year at high school at New Trier West High School in Northfield, Illinois, I joined my high school radio station, and that laid the foundation right there. So I've never met a microphone or a camera lens I didn't like. And I'm
Wow.
trying to use my new media skills and abilities to help people elevate their profile. because I'm meeting so many people who want to, and they just can't.
Yeah.
They can't slip out of the comfort zone or migrate far away from it to the point where they feel good in front of the camera. They can't pull it out of their minds and put it out there on a Word document and publish it on a blog. And this is the voice within that they need to summon forth to be effective in today's business environment.
Well, I could also see you doing a lot of MC type things. I recently got to see JP Sears. He's the redhead that does the vegan satire. He's really funny. He was on my show. And you guys have some, maybe it's the initials. I mean, he's JP or JD. No space, no periods. You guys have, maybe it's something that, you know, that you guys have, that just this energy, which I could feel when I talk to both of you, that you have this sense of humor that comes through, but you're also pointing out the elephant in the room in a really funny way to me. And I like that. And I could see why you would be popular for a speaker or a consultant, or, you know, but your videos interest me, because I could see companies hiring you to create videos like that one with the voiceover artist. And because I could see that it would be really great to build morale in the company. Do you do that at all?
I would love to do that. I'm getting more and more involved in that. I start as a thought partner for people who are contemplating the use of video. And we should specify, Diane, between the type of video work that I'm involved with and what you see going on, say, Facebook Live or native video.
Oh, yeah.
the native video on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm going to say this in a loving and empathic way, it's almost unwatchable. But yet I applaud the efforts of the people who are out there doing it, because this is the essence of the work I'm trying to do. It takes a lot of guts. In fact, balls.
Yeah.
Video and put it out there if you're not accustomed to it, because we're all protected by our reptilian brains, and we shield ourselves from any negativity or unflattering sentiment. And nobody wants to be known as the person who puts out the bad, unwatchable videos. But people get better doing this, and over time, it translates into more meaningful communication with an audience. And it doesn't matter how big that audience is. So on the one hand, I love what I'm seeing with people doing the video work.
Right.
I'm going to help them take that piece to production. There's a difference between extemporaneous, I'm going to switch on the smartphone and talk into it for 10 minutes, to storyboarding and scripting and really seeing yourself through a video program and presentation that is going to mean something to potential clients.
Well, yeah, definitely huge difference between your video and anything I've seen on Facebook Live or anything else. Yours is an actual, I mean, well done, highly produced, professional thing. And I could see sponsors doing that type of thing with you. I mean, I've seen, like when I mentioned JP Spears, he did like poopery commercials and different things. And I could see that those are like 4 or 5 minute videos, how long was your video that you had the voiceover in?
That was actually 5 minutes and 30 some seconds.
Right. And that's a good, I mean, you know, a lot of things you say be less than 2 to 5 minutes or whatever, but that one was so entertaining. And so same with the things that JP does, that I think that and same with Trip Crosby, you guys all have this area that's so different, and you're so different. The markets you guys hit, you completely do different things, which makes you guys also unique to me. And that's what I'd love to talk to you about.
Well, to your point, if I may, before you migrate away, the length of time and the duration of a video, since video really came to the fore, which I would say was a couple of years ago, still not a mainstream practice, but it's getting there at the time that we tape. We were encouraged to just be quick hit. The format had to be deliver your message and get out. And it has to be a minute and a half. People have attention deficit disorder. They're not going to stand and look and listen to a podcast or watch a video that's more than a minute and a half. But my personal belief, and I've always held this, is that if a video is compelling and really rivets people, which is a hard thing to do in today's society, given all of the stuff coming at us, it'll work at the duration that I'm asking. And I even wrote about that. I said, I thank people for going through all 5 minutes and 35 seconds of my video, because I know that that could have been spent doing something else, maybe something that'll make them money, who knows.
Yeah.
But my goal with the work is to educate, to inspire, to let people know that there's a way to effectively and humorously raise your profile and still maintain your credibility in the
Mhm.
real world.
Well, if I hadn't have sat through as much as I did, I wouldn't have found out that that wasn't his real voice. So I'm glad I found out that it was a voiceover. I'm like, I kept watching, going, "How in the world did you
JD,
get
how
Morgan
on earth did you get
Freeman?"
Morgan Freeman to do your little video?
I was like, "Wow, this guy knows Morgan Freeman. That's cool."
And the other thing is, which led me to the creation uh, and development of my online media platform called The Big Banter with JD Gershbein. So
Hmm.
I've always subscribed to the notion that you have to adapt or die. This is a very common cliche in business. And
Hmm.
what I've seen in the LinkedIn market was enough to motivate me to think maybe the future isn't in just pigeonholing myself in a website. The
Hmm.
good news is that I have a strong brand as a LinkedIn specialist. I was one of the first in the world to get there and do it,
Hmm.
but now I can parlay that knowledge and that experience into the development of my own media platform and my own digital channel where I can create this content and be a much more effective leader and communicator. So the Big Banter, which we kicked off with the taping of a live social business variety show back in October
Oh
26,
yeah. Hmm.
2017. I had 250 plus through the door at the Hard Rock Cafe. We taped the
Wow.
show. Content is going to be up and available soon on thebigbanter.com.
Hmm.
That's thebigbanter.com.
Hmm.
And I'm launching a podcast and really kind of going about this now the way that I felt I was meant to do, following my muse,
Hmm.
being funny. I don't know if I'm funny. You'd have to ask other people, but I do want to be taken seriously.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
think I think comedy is serious business, as they say.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, it's not all about just being wacky and whimsical. If
Mhm.
you're going to go that route, you better have something on the back end that is going to be of value to business people.
Right. Well,
Whether I'm
that's
bringing whether
well,
I'm bringing them out to a live event or whether I'm asking them to invest a half hour in podcast, the content has to be solid. It has to teach them. They have to learn. Ideally, I'd like them to laugh.
mhm.
And I'd like to think, well, JD is kind of doing things in a different way. And
Mhm.
hence, that's branding, folks.
That is branding, folks. And
Brand.
as you talk about the companies and the videos, I think coming back in my mind is the 20 years I worked for a company, and 15 of them in pharmaceutical sales, at all the meetings I went to,
Mhm.
and how Larry Miller came to one of our meetings. He was hysterical, and he really made the meeting great. And I can remember of all the meetings thinking, I wish they were all like that. And they need to do more of that kind of thing. And they would try to bring in things to make it entertaining. And what I think is really important is that what you do in some of these trainings, that you bring in the lighthearted nature, but you're teaching at the same time, and it's so professional. How often do you go to companies and say, your meetings, I would love to maybe launch these videos there as an entertainment part of the sales rah part, get them going, and then maybe put them out in the real world after that. I could see a lot of companies could really get some great edutainment from you. I could see.
Well, then this is my plea to anybody who's earshot and eyeshot of this video. Bring my phone, because I would love to talk to them. This
Yeah.
is what I would like to do. I would like to edutain.
Yeah.
This is where it's at for me.
You should do it.
There are so many people who are disrupting YouTube and
Hmm.
just going out there and having conversations with their audience. Now, I have conversations with my audience, but I'm a firm believer that we can teach
Hmm.
through sketch comedy. We
Hmm.
can teach through improv. We can
Right.
teach through music, the humanities. I incorporate a lot of the humanities into what I do. Let's face it, social media mirrors the human condition in the real world.
Hmm.
It's really the human condition that's gone online.
Hmm.
More and more people now are breaking through, breaking the plane. They're going online. They're displaying all their emotions out there. There seems to be no filters on some of these folks. They're
Yeah.
just out
Uh-huh.
there, and they are telling it like it is. And the key emotions of life: love, grief, joy, sadness, despair. They're all playing out on the social platforms.
Yeah.
Even LinkedIn has humanized through the years. It's not just about business, hardcore, in your face business. It's about showing the human side and showing what's bringing us to the dance. What's bringing you to the dance, Diane? That's the voice you need to express and get out there, because people aren't going to buy your services or products until what? They buy you.
That's right. That's right. And I hope, just thinking of what you've done, I just envision so many sales departments. Pharmaceuticals was a good example, but I go to a lot of meetings. I mean, just the technology industry, all the people looking at their industry, the things that they need to learn, but in a funny way that, people like to laugh at what their problems are in their own, realm. And I could see that would be an excellent thing, especially like I could see you in pharmaceutical training videos, just doing fake doctor presentations and making them really funny, and people just have like all annoying doctors. You could play all the different annoying doctor segments, you know what I mean? And they have, because you have actors that come in and do your stuff. You have actual actors. They're really good too.
Yeah, well, I'm actually in the process, as we tape this, of forming and assembling a repertory, a theater ensemble group to act out business theater and sketches. And I'm working with some of the funniest folks I've ever met, some of the great comic talent in Chicago. And I'm networking within the creative community and looking for a home to produce these shows. So for me, it's truly become a labor of love, because I'm not holding back anymore. I mean, for years to develop an entrepreneurial business around social media, I kept my humor in check.
Yeah.
I was a very straightforward, rigid speaker that would go in and do a training, and I couldn't catch people off guard. I couldn't play to their, to their humor and funny bones. I had to be this kind of straight-laced, buttoned-up facilitator.
Yeah.
And
What changed? Why?
I just said, enough is enough. We have to have fun with this.
Yeah.
The advent of video and the ability to use humor to differentiate my offerings, and to bring in more of the science and the art, and to show people that this is not rocket science or brain surgery. It's kind of like rocket surgery.
It kind of is.
Yeah. So we're performing operations on rockets.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, great question, what changed? And I think it was several years ago when I was first told to go out and share my story. And that's what kind of broke down the first barrier. And then, you know what? We're encouraged to be authentic on these platforms. If I'm going to be too straight-laced and rigid, I'm not operating in my authenticity.
Right.
I'm trying to get a point across. I'm trying to be known. I'm trying to be credible. I'm trying to garner social proof, that kind of thing. But the true impact that I'm going to make in business, the true impact that any of us are going to make in business, is how we truly bring it and show up in the real world, and what we're saying, what we're doing, how we're interacting. Are we in lockstep with the goals of our clients, that kind of thing. And that I've never had to worry about, because I will get the work done for the client. I will impress the audience at the talk and educate them. But now I'm bent on having a little bit more fun in doing it.
It's hard to really be completely yourself online, though, don't you think? Because there's so many haters out there, and you say one thing. I mean, I sometimes I look at some of the things that people will post, on just simple nice little videos people have done, and they just slam them. They say such awful things. Is it making? I mean, is it making us fear? Just being authentic, because you just got to be so vanilla. You have to be so vanilla now.
Well, that goes back to the pressure we all have on us to be brand storytellers. Not everybody is cut out to tell stories. When you see people go out there with the smartphone, it's not for everybody. But applaud those people for breaking through. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if it's consistently of quality that we just find annoying, or it's just not for us, or hey man, E for effort but no thanks, I'm going to hide your posts from my feed. You don't want to do anything to deflate these people. I've never said anything of a conflicting nature. I've never disheartened or dissuaded people from doing any of this type of thing. Doesn't mean if they put it out, I don't have to watch it, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to accomplish something. And I applaud the effort, as I mentioned earlier, for people who do it. I don't like conflict on social media. There are sites that have that kind of contrarian nature to it, and they encourage rants and fights and verbal jousting and all that. And I've never really got into that. That's not my thing. I'd rather point out the good than attract attention to anything that's of a derogatory nature. I don't think there's mistakes enough going on out there. I just want to let people know they're on the right track by what they're doing.
Don't you find it interesting what people want to watch? I mean, are you the one that, when we talked last time, said that there's a guy on YouTube that has the millions of viewers and all he does is play game? Somebody told me this recently.
No, you must have me confused with some other incredibly handsome guy.
That must be it.
With round glasses.
There's a guy that just games, and he's got millions and millions of followers. It was like Dupayway or something. It's an unusual name. I got to look him up. But I was talking about it with somebody recently, and I'm thinking, I went to his site, and I think a lot of things he does is just, he games, and people can talk about the different games. Or I really don't know enough about what he does, but it fascinates me to just look at what draws people and of what makes them interested. And actually talking to somebody this week, because I'm going to be pitching some different talks that I'm giving, and we were talking about fake news and how people are drawn to it. And I'm writing a book about curiosity, and I'm interested in things that make people curious. And people are just so drawn to certain things. And like fake news is very appealing to people, especially if it goes along with their values. They don't want to look outside of what they're seeing. And I think that when you're dealing with organizations, they kind of have a personality the way people do, because they have their culture and they don't want to look outside of what they're doing. How hard has it been for you dealing with people and their cultures to get them to really see how their culture is impacting their employees?
All great points. And when you're into that culture conversation, which is truly what organizations are scrambling to do, is showcase their culture in the most meaningful way possible to attract the top talent, to get to the strategic alliances that will help them drive forward in business. You're right. I saw this rush for content right around, I want to say 2012, 2013. That's when LinkedIn was starting to become much more vibrant, and people were beginning to realize that as their networks expanded, their content and their posts were getting lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So they had to pound the system with more content. And as a consequence, they started to scramble. Well, what can we do? Well, let's showcase some of our people. Let's just put out a paragraph from our annual report. Let's start talking about our company in a way that is going to inspire learning, exploration, research into what we do. And in the war for top talent, in the war for good partners, good channel partners, good distribution channels, good clients. I mean, who doesn't want good clients? This became top strategy, was showcasing the culture. Culture now is one of the most bandied about terms in our business lexicon nowadays. So everything you did in teeing up that question, Diane, was absolutely right. And this is also where video and visual marketing can be so huge. It's been driving Facebook for well before it came to LinkedIn.
Well, it is interesting because it's such a huge topic. I mean, you either hear about culture, engagement, soft skills, all those things are all still such a challenge. Do you get a lot of people wanting to talk to you about the conflict because of generational issues? Do you deal with that as well? Because I get a lot of requests for that.
Some, and I see it the most on college campuses. I speak at colleges and universities all across the country, and students are my most receptive audience, because I'm getting them right as they're realizing that they've got to leave some of their silliness behind and move into the real world, and responsibilities are starting, and those pictures they took passed out on a park bench a few years ago, they don't come back to haunt them, being researched online by future employers. So the goal is that we're all in beta with this digital world, and when I go out and speak, I could be talking about LinkedIn. I could be talking about online communication patterns. I could be talking about social entrepreneurship, new media development, whatever the initiative. If it involves breaking the plane into this thing, this computer thing that we're looking at, and separating out the physical world from the virtual world, that represents issues for some people.
Yeah.
And the digital natives, the so-called people from whose generation all this social media was spawned, they're all comfortable with it. They had found their place in the internet world.
Right.
Many people haven't. They're reluctant, they're resistant. They admonish people who are heavily into it because they see it as a disconnect between true humanity on the earth. But let's face it, we are into our devices, we are into technology. The focus now is how we use these effectively, how we continue to self-disrupt in a positive way. We're always going to have a disruption to deal with. What's the next one? Well, it's how we adapt, continual adaptation, continual reinvention, and moving ourselves forward in a way that paces with the technology, and we're still real.
Well, I'm curious, do you think, how has technology impacted our ability to be curious? Do you think we're letting it do things for us too much? Is it too complicated that we just give up and we don't want to be curious? Well, I'm curious what you think. You're going to help me write my book a little bit now.
Great experimentation I did. My father was a man of medicine, and I remember doing some work on exploratory versus regimental behavior, where laboratory rats were placed on a grid and they would poke their holes, or I'm sorry, there were holes cut into the board, and they would poke their head into the holes just to see what was there, whether it was food, whether it was the other side, and they were lab rats, and we were just watching basically how they went across the board and what they did and how many times they would poke their heads through the holes. So curiosity and the curiosity studies, I mean, again, you're at the limbic center of the brain, emotional seat of exchange for decision making and memory and learning and placement and processing. All of this is going on. And I think people will tell you if they have an inquisitive nature or they're curious by nature, that's something that we've all had. We're born curious, right?
Right.
Other people just attend to it in more profound ways. But I think you're in a really hot area right now that does beautifully with social media.
Yeah, it does. And it's really interesting to me to see what makes, I mean, you say we're all born curious. I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of things stop us sometimes because either, in school they have curriculum, you have to go this way. So if you ask this question, well, we don't have time for that and you can't go that direction or something, things that we don't really mean to stop curiosity, but they do. And so if we all are born curious, how do you develop that in other people that have had, they've hit the wall, the hole got closed, keeps hitting his nose into the hole or whatever. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
You try to generate the love and appreciation of learning.
Yeah.
I work with many people who self-declare as lifelong learners. And those are people that stayed curious.
Yeah.
They're the ones that don't jump the book to the ending. They'll read the whole book. They're patient. They let the game come to them. This is the point. Yeah. And I've kind of been that way. I'm curious, not curious to a fault, but a curious guy that has really examined certain aspects. I certainly study what's important to me. There's a lot I don't know. We all have our blind spots. I can't go toe to toe with people who are in discussions on something that I can't contribute to. So I kind of play to my strengths and know my limitations and kind of steer clear. But I'll listen. I'm always listening. I'm always observing. I'm always processing. I'm always encoding, and I'm always applying.
Yeah.
What I can apply in my real life is a byproduct of my curiosity, because I've converted that curiosity to learning.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your insight. And we had talked about some of this stuff in the past. And I know I wanted to make sure we covered everything because we had talked, and then I wanted to share it in this conference in case we missed anything. One thing you brought up the last time we talked, and I know we didn't get this on tape, but I thought it was really fascinating. You had a friend who has a show, and I looked him up, the ventriloquist. And I'm getting off topic here a little bit. But that was really interesting. He's doing his own show, and he's got a ventriloquist dummy. Well, he's got somebody in the car while he's interviewing them, and the dummy's mostly doing the interviewing.
How about that? You're going to have to provide a link to
I
that.
got a link. What is his name? Please give him a little plug here.
I would like to introduce your viewers and my listeners to Chuck Field, who was a guy who lived out in the Chicago area here for years. Chuck Field.
Okay.
What's Up Chuck, we like to call him. What'sUpChuck.com is the website.
Okay.
Chuck was a guy that I formed a very close friendship and business relationship with here in the Chicago area. He moved out to your neck of the woods out there in Scottsdale, Arizona.
That's right.
And, you know, Chuck he's an interesting breed. He's just an incredible comic thinker, but also has a great, sharp mind for business. And what he's been able to do has been characteristic of people who are versatile in the digital era. And that is combine multiple brands into a single offering. And I've worked with many people through the years, Diane, who have had multiple talents, skills. Some have crystallized as to what they do, but some are in 2, 3, 4, or more well-defined businesses, working them all simultaneously. So Chuck is in a straightforward business environment, a family-owned, closely held business, selling boxing and corrugated packaging to business, and he does comedy ventriloquism. Can you find a more disparate brand than that?
It was interesting. It was interesting.
But the genius of Chuck is that he's able to work both against each other, well, actually with each other, to create opportunities in both of his brands. So he does ventriloquism shows at company gatherings, and at company gatherings he will be able to generate interest for his ventriloquism shows. So he's an entertainer, but he's also a business person with just a keen grasp of business, and happens to be an extremely talented ventriloquist who's leveraging the social platforms here on YouTube to create a series about passing through a car wash. And in that time the car wash is going, conversation with his dummy, or as he would say, wooden American. Not everybody can talk to a ventriloquism dummy.
He was funny. He was interviewing you. I saw another one where he's not in the car wash, and you had to keep a real straight face throughout. I think you had some outtakes at the end. I found that quite funny. Well,
I love a good blooper reel.
Yeah, a good
essential piece for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we would have plenty if we videotaped everything we talked about. But
I'm not sure what the content was, but that was a darn good blooper reel.
It was a good blooper reel. Well, I would like for you to share how people can find out more about you, because I think this has been really fun, and you and I have a great time every time we talk, and I'm sure it is fun. And I would love for you to share how people could find out more if they want to hire you as a speaker, consultant, video maker,
paperweight, doorstop,
yeah, everything. How can they reach you?
Well, it shouldn't surprise anyone that I'm on LinkedIn, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
You're on LinkedIn?
Under my name. Yeah, LinkedIn, Facebook for Business. You know that. I'm available under search at JD Gershbein. My name. You'll have it spelled clearly on your site, I would hope.
Let's hope.
And my website, jdgershbein.com, is my name website, and you can also locate The Big Banter online at thebigbanter.com. And as we tape today, there's going to be a huge infusion of content there once we launch the podcast. I almost shudder when I talk about the references to time, because this could be seen in 5, 7, 10 years, and people are going, well, that's been an established entity for quite a while. And he's now telling me it's just going online.
Well, I'm sure it'll be very fascinating information. And I have one last question, though.
Okay.
You found me on LinkedIn.
That's right.
And I've been on there for quite a while. I'm trying to think, what took you so long to find me?
What was I thinking?
What were you thinking?
Where the hell was I?
I mean,
I didn't get the memo.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Well, you get into a very great question, if I can end with this. This would be a great closing point, and that is always trust your instincts and never leave any stone unturned. LinkedIn provides you with a people they think you know list. It's called, coincidentally, People You May Know. And you popped on that list, and I look at that list from time to time. When I have more time, I'll do a couple cycles of screen refreshers, and I'll be on it, and I'm looking at people basically by their professional headlines, because I don't want to visit their profiles unless I'm truly intrigued. And based on what you presented, I was intrigued and visited your profile, made a determination that I wanted to connect with you. So I did what kind of came naturally, and I approached you in a respectful way. I
Right.
didn't send you a generic default formulaic invitation to connect. I basically told you that we hadn't met and that based on the information you offered in your profile, I was interested in connecting with you. I had no idea what's on the other end of that.
Right.
Who the heck knows these days?
Right.
But
Yeah.
the key is that everything I've ever done on LinkedIn, on social media, has been proactive and authentic. And I do not operate out of authenticity. If I wanted to meet someone, I will usually take the initiative and do it.
Yeah.
If people want to meet me, I will come back to them and thank them for reaching out and try to get into conversations very quickly. So
Yeah.
that's a technique that I do teach to my students and clients, and that is, don't treat invitations as just trying to sell me something. Because if you're willing to invest in certain relationships, not all of them, something cool like guesting on a webcast or a podcast, or actually something even greater like being called in to train a team or work with the leadership of a company, or a job lead for someone who's in a career search. You never know what's on the other end of an invitation. Take it on a case-by-case basis.
Right. And when you get them on the case-by-case basis, when they send you a bouquet of flowers or something creepy, it's usually not very good. So I've seen the exact opposite of what you've sent, and yours was so professional. And I'm like, wow, that was really good. I want to know more about him. And I'm so glad I looked into it, and we have made a great connection, and I really enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Likewise, and I want to thank you for having the faith to bring me on and let me tell my story, which I'm trying to do a little bit more of. Again, I never thought it would be of interest to anyone, but now it's what differentiates me. And in a period where we're at with social, where everything is now going to come alive through content and video, take it upon yourself, folks, to learn the very best way to express yourself. Rehearse it in the car, in the shower, on the treadmill, whatever. Be good, present well, and I'm living proof that it can translate into some great things. You get to meet people like Diane Hamilton, PhD, and that's...
There you go.
What more can I say? Thank you for having me on, Diane. Truly appreciate it.
You are welcome. Thank you.